It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports, stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball! Yeah!
Alrighty, well, a very, very happy Wednesday, February 14, 2024. Welcome to another episode of The Throw-In. My name is Justin, and, you're living in northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. Obviously, the weather, we haven't really had ourselves a logistic winter. I think through my remembrance, I think we've only really had one snowfall. So, I mean, it's been chilly and we've had some rain. When I say been chilly, it's been breezy than anything else. We've had, some breeze in the, mid 40s most of the time, maybe 50s here and there. Nothing too substantial to really be worried about. I know like later this week is supposed to drop down into the 30s one night this week, and then kind of scattered snowflakes here and there. But you can we have the windows open, some candles lit, and it feels really good. So you take a moment and you just breathe in that air from outside, and it's baseball season. I mean, I can't explain, normally this is, you kind of get that feeling in about a month from now that baseball season is among us, because then you smell the fresh lawn being cut, the new sod and the new dirt coming down. Typically you'd get that sense next month, right? Or just maybe in a few weeks. But you get that now today on a typical Wednesday, afternoon in February. And trust me, we really haven't had much of a winter to really be talk about much of anything. But I just thought to kick things off with that. I want to welcome everyone to the program. Happy Valentine's Day to those out there celebrating it. I just posted something on my personal social media page, kind of acknowledging my wife. I'm not one to really typically celebrate Valentine's Day. That's kind of not my style, not my gig, if you would think about it. I just don't believe in buying into the whole honorary celebration, and nothing that I don't want to acknowledge my loved one, but I just don't want to, I just don't want to, for me, it's another thing where, I been watching the news earlier this week, and I was like, well, you know what? Prices are going up. If you go out to a restaurant today on Valentine's Day, I want to say it was a 5 or 10% prices have went up just for tonight's dinners. So you take your wife out, you take your husband out to a dinner. I mean, your prices are going to go up 10%. Now, off of $1, that's 10 cents. So you add $10, that's $1. And it does make a whole difference. Then you have the whole, chocolates and candies and flowers, which, I feel like it's just a designated day to celebrate on top of anniversaries where you have, your first, when you first met, when you had your first date, when you officially became a couple, when you got married. um those dates pile on. Me and my wife met on May 13th. We didn't met, well, we first encountered each other on or not May 3rd, April 13th, excuse me. April 13th was that day. And then you have May 14th when, we officially became a couple. And then now we have our, wedding anniversary to remember. So there's just a lot of things to remember on top of Valentine's Day. I think for me, like I said, it's not as I don't want to celebrate it. I just don't buy into the whole the fancy, you know, little chocolate covered strawberries, the flowers, the whole buying. They have a whole season because then the next month is St. Patrick's Day, and the next it's Easter. So I just don't buy into it. But listen, you guys are celebrating Valentine's Day out there. Be safe. It's a, it's I get, it's that time kind of after the Super Bowl between football and baseball to kind of just take a remembrance. So much stuff going on in February. But yeah, happy Valentine's Day to those. It's been a while since we've been on our program. About a week and a half, if not 2 weeks. I did 2 episodes about 2 weeks ago. I actually ended up doing an interview with Aspiring Glow, I believe, and that carried into where I took a couple extra days to get an episode going. Last week, I was notified that I was supposed to have maintenance come out and fix, but there's, I guess, I do this podcast from the luxury spot of my living room corner. Our place is kind of set up where you have a little bit longer living room space where I could fit a kind of almost like a little work desk in part of my living room, and then you still have a lot of space on the other side. But throughout the past couple of years, with lanes, I've been with the rain and weather, I've been having water leak from the ceilings so maintenance finally came out, took a look at that, said, hey, listen, it's more the foundation. And so they are having to work on that before they could fix any repairs of the ceiling or whatnot. I get a call from property management. They were supposed to come out last Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe. No one showed up, but when you expect someone to come out and it's kind of like, well, you kind of wait the entire day for them to come out. You cancel all your plans because you want to make sure that you show everything that needs to be done. And so that takes a lot of time. Also with the recollection of my the wife kind of has lingered into a new job, so working with that schedule, kind of really, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not complaining. I'm more so venting, but I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or 6 or 7, and I'm kind of up throughout the rest of the day. So when you get to the back end of the day where you're kind of getting kids, winding down into bed, and you're getting the 4-month-old in bed trying to sleep throughout the night, and he's been doing pretty good. But then by the time everyone gets to bed, it's nice and dark, and I've been finding myself tired as well. So honestly, I am, I've been struggling doing the 10 to midnight shifts for the podcast. Talked with the wife a little bit later. I like the daytime stuff. I'm sure, I don't know how you guys feel about the daytime stuff, but we are going to try to work on finding a new consistency. Monday and Wednesday and Fridays were something that was working until things changed, and so we're just trying to still find our comfort zone on putting out a consistent podcast this year. We're working really hard on it, and trust me, I gotta say, I don't take pleasure in the time that I do not get a chance to come on here and talk to you guys, because there's a lot of sports that happen. I mean, I haven't really came on here and talked to you guys much about the the Royal Rumble. I haven't talked much about that WrestleMania kickoff that a couple weeks ago. Well, felt like a couple weeks ago. It was actually just last week. And then don't forget the Super Bowl, which congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about them in a minute. So for those who are following us on our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com, that is www.tncsportstalkshow.com. A link to the website's in the description below, whether you're listening to us on audio or social media, whatever. Be sure to check in from time to time. I know I try my best to update that more often than anything else. So check out our website for more. But let's get down into some conversations of some football here, some sports here. Let's kick off with the football conversations. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the San Francisco 49ers in overtime at Super Bowl 58. Final score was 25-22. The Kansas City Chiefs have now won back-to-back Super Bowls. First time in a decade that any team has done so. That's related back to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots back in 03 and 04. And, listen, my family grew up, I guess, a Chargers 49ers fan. So if I was going into Sunday's game saying, you know what, I want the 49ers to win. And we, it was a close game. I think we were given a run for our money throughout the game, and we saw a little bit of everything. The one thing that I could point out in the Super Bowl that I noticed that I think when we talk about a game, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, one of the questions is who is going to make the most mistakes and who is going to capitalize on those mistakes. And on Sunday, we saw, I think, an equal balance of mistakes that both teams made. Now, I was a big fan of, like I said, 49ers going into the game, but statistics just did not give the 49ers the favor. I was reading into Patrick Mahomes is 13-1. I was I think it was undefeated in indoor stadiums. He's 3-0 or 4-0 again at Allegiant Stadium alone. He's 13-1 against quarterbacks under the age of 25. Or something in the postseason. Okay. And just statistics are showing that Kansas City just favored. And so it's kind of hard to sit there and, why bet against them? And I think everyone wanted to. And I was thinking about that on Sunday night watching the game. And I'm like, as the game creeped along and as San Francisco was missing those opportunities, I was thinking to myself, I was like, why doesn't this not remind you of the New England Patriots? When Tom Brady was on the Patriots, you just did not bet against the Patriots under any circumstances. It doesn't matter if they went 17-0. It didn't matter if they went 9-8 or 8-8, and if they found their way to the postseason, you didn't bet against them. And that's the same way with Kansas City now, right? From the play-by-play commentary announcers, it is reported that a dynasty is every 20 years. New England was from 2000 to 2020. I'd say a little bit less. That was their dynasty. Isn't it fair to say that Kansas City's on the verge of creating that next dynasty in the NFL? Patrick Mahomes joins a list of 4 quarterbacks who has won 3 Super Bowls or more. That's Tom Brady, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana, and Troy Aikman, excuse me. Patrick Mahomes is the second youngest quarterback to join that list. I mean, and it's just I think it surprises me that we're seeing it. And New England Patriots was probably was the nation's hated team for those 18, 20 years of success that they had back, from 2000 to 2000. I say 18. Whenever, didn't matter who you wanted, they were so nasty that, wherever you went, they were the NFL's hated team unless they played in New England. Reminds you a lot like, a lot like the Dodgers. It reminds you a lot like Alabama, because you just knew how good they are and didn't matter who they had. They were just good. You had Tom Brady. He evolved into the next generation. He kept alive. And so when you think of that, I'm like, Kansas City's right there. And that's how you have such a successful team, right? Such a dominating team. When you can sit there and you can, when you sit there and you put up, you put up stats and you win Super Bowls, and you not only win games, but then when now you're hated by all other 31 NFL teams except for your own. I mean, we know the struggles that Kansas City provides in the AFC. And then now I think the NFC is fair to say, hey, not only you beat San Francisco twice, you beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think, a lot of people jump onto the Kansas City Chiefs as, they are the team to beat. And I agree with that. We have much more Super Bowl talk here coming up here in segment number 2. But we got to take a little break as we get the program rolling. Want to give a big shout out to you. It's been a couple weeks, so bear with me. All right, so if you guys are listening to us on our social media platforms, want to thank you. Please hit that subscribe to our channel. Leave us a review and comment and all that great stuff. If you guys are looking at whatever you want to call it, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. We will be right back. Take a little break. Come on back. Talk more about Super Bowl 58 as we have a big lineup here today on a Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, welcome back here to the program. Want to give a big shout out, as we want to give a big thanks to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you can create podcast videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. All guests on our show is given to you by StreamYard.com. If you guys would like to jump on the podcast and weigh in your thoughts as we talk Cincinnati baseball and brackets coming up with basketball here in just a few weeks, head on over to our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is where you can privately message me, and we can work on getting you on our program. All right, I was looking over what, we have a lot of back talk to cover today as we, Super Bowl 58 wraps up, and we'll talk about that here in a second. We got the whole interaction. Cody Rhodes officially announcing that he's going to be facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40 for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. But there's a lot of extra feuds going in the way that kind of maybe confuses a lot of people. So I want to talk about that. We'll give you an update about local Cincinnati sports, basketball. Kentucky played last night. Cincinnati played last night. Xavier will play tonight as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that in our program today. But I want to get back to the conversations of the Super Bowl 58, where we saw San Francisco 49ers drop yet another Super Bowl win under head coach Kyle Shanahan from the Kansas City Chiefs. And, it's kind of heartbreaking because the last 3 Super Bowls San Francisco has had, has not gone their way. And I don't know if there's a curse, or I don't know what you would say if there's a curse, but how does, San Francisco kind of now take a step back in the offseason? All right, let's regroup and let's figure out how we're going to handle moving forward, because they're still the dominant team, in my opinion, in the NFC. And, if you ask me early on here, as we just ease our way into the post, to the offseason, how does, San Francisco is still that dominant team, which I believe they will be back at the Super Bowl next year. They will most certainly, unless, God forbid something happens to Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel or Brock Purdy, they will be back in the NFC Championship picture again. They are the only team, in my opinion, that has solidified their dominance in the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles had the opportunity this year. I don't think they made it. Dallas Cowboys, I don't bet a single nickel on them for that reason. There's just, maybe the Detroit Lions, but I got to see a couple years of consistency. San Francisco 49ers, although they have gone through a few different quarterback changes, it was Jimmy Garoppolo a couple years ago. Then you brought in, Trey Lance, I believe, to be that next franchise quarterback. We saw how that went. Now, Brock Purdy is in that conversation. They solely do believe on him. And if you're maybe hitting the free agent market this year, San Francisco is 1, maybe 2 pieces away from getting over that hump of, all right, we made it to the Super Bowl. We're capable of making it to the Super Bowl, but we have to finish out the season. When I watched the Super Bowl on Sunday, what I noticed quickly, and I don't know I haven't really listened to much other, sports radios talking about this at all, but San Francisco got off to a fantastic start. Defensively, we knew this was going to be a battle, and it sure was. Everyone wants to talk a lot about Patrick Mahomes. Everyone wants to talk a lot about Brock Purdy, what they did or didn't do. But let's give credit to the defense, because that was going to define Sunday's game. And they did. And it has been noted on social media lately that San Francisco's defense was unaware of the postseason rules. And you know what? I'm going to be fair with you as a sports podcaster myself. I knew the rules had changed. I just didn't know to what extent it changed into. But it changed. And so whatever the case may be, let's take a look at the old it was tie ball game heading into overtime. And even if you looked at the old playoff pitcher, okay, you played you had overtime. Whoever wins a coin flip will get the ball, or you got a chance to defer. You either run down and score a touchdown, therefore you win. And if you score a touchdown, if you kick a field goal, then your opponent gets the opportunity to run down, either tie the game with the field goal or score a touchdown and win. If both of you guys either don't score a touchdown, don't kick a field goal, and you guys have to punt back and forth, the game continues until someone scores. So that is the concept of overtime. And San Francisco ran down the field. They got the ball. They won the coin toss. They received the ball. They ran down the field, and they had to settle for a field goal, which in the old settings of a postseason overtime, or any overtime for that matter, they kicked a field goal. Therefore, their opponents get the ball. They didn't go score a touchdown, right? So what I'm thinking out of my head is that, all right, the next team that scores higher than 3 points wins the ball game. Kansas City now has an opportunity to run down the field, and they have to score a touchdown, or they kick a field goal. Like, they have to make some sort of points on the field. But that was already established long ago. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around, where did San Francisco go wrong in thinking, okay, I didn't know about the new playoff rules. It hasn't really changed much to the concept of, the only difference is that both teams have the opportunity of scoring. Therefore, because we're going to play until someone wins, we're basically just restarting the game. So you don't get the 2-minute warning. Okay, so that doesn't come into the next quarter, right? Or is that eliminated? That we haven't gotten that far to even wrap my brain around that. But you got 3 timeouts, and San Francisco, and I'm sorry, and I'm not saying that San Francisco is trying to use this as an excuse, but they're trying to point out that we didn't even know the new rules of overtime. And yeah, you know what? Teams don't always prepare for overtime rules, even though we can argue that San Francisco should be preparing for all of the above, right? It's football. It's the final game of the season. You should be ready regardless of who you are. But my point is that you're saying that stuff, and yet the conclusion of how overtime went through had nothing to do with the new rules, other than maybe the 2-minute warning that they did not have. Therefore, you had 3 timeouts. You could have used a timeout. The defense was still going to have to be on the field, was going to still have to stop Kansas City Chiefs. And yet they ran down the field and scored a touchdown, which then gives them obviously more points, and therefore they win. My thing is, okay, and this is my belief. San Francisco came out hot-headed. They were lit up. They were on fire. They were ready to go. Great to see that. But what I saw was that they were you started to see them get tired. And throughout the back end of the game, I saw San Francisco push the ball. One thing that I think they had more established than Kansas City, because both defense was playing balls out, lights out football. San Francisco came out a bit harder. They stopped Patrick Mahomes early on, which I love to see. But I just knew sitting there watching the game that this was going to backfire because they were exerting a lot of their energy to get to Patrick Mahomes, to keep him in the pocket. And this caused them, I think, to be tired, more tired so than Kansas City. See, Kansas City was smart. They they're going to come run down the field as long as we don't. It doesn't matter technically what we do. I would like to stop them, but if they score 3 points, they score 7 points, we're going to get the ball back. Okay, and Patrick Mahomes, I'm not betting against him when he has a critical position to come down the field. There was arguments throughout the game. I talk about opportunities throughout the game. And you talk about missed opportunities. There was missed opportunities that San Francisco had the chance to break the score away early on in the second half. Those quick 3 and outs that Kansas City had to begin the second half were those opportunities. 49ers had those. It was even in field goal range most of those times, and they didn't capitalize on it. This separates the difference between good teams and great teams, because it felt like San Francisco was struggling to find their feet. And I think one of the easiest, and listen, I'm not a head coach. I'm not Kyle Shanahan. I'm not the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not in the NFL. But I could tell you that if you were watching the game, I think it was clear when to run the ball, when not to run the ball. And I don't know the defender's name, but there was an opportunity because he was taken out on almost every second down to run the ball in the second half against a tired Kansas City Chiefs team. So we can call how it is. Like I said, I thought it was a really good game. I think that San Francisco is still up there among probably the best NFC team right now. I think that if you put the Detroit Lions up there, it could have been a bit different. I don't know. But what I do know is that San Francisco, they both played hard. They both were defensively tired. And you just now separate yourself from Brock Purdy, who's a good quarterback, who I still think has a lot to learn in this league. He's been thrown in there at the Wolves to really just, hey, you got to step up and do it. And I think that San Francisco are just maybe a piece or two away from sealing the deal, right? Kansas City, though, they've been doing it. This is their 3rd Super Bowl victory. This is their 4th Super Bowl appearance in the last 6 years. Like, come on. You've been there, you've done that, you got your shoes wet, and, you can go throughout the game and be as good as you can, but the best will finish and find a way to continue the game. And I think that's what has all been said heading into this. So I was throwing out the idea that, in the comment section here for everybody, you pick up a victory like this. And I was like, how much does this win for Kansas City can affect the Bengals? Maybe improve. You think about, the offseason here, and I think Cincinnati is in a, situation where they got to make some decisions, some tough decisions, because I feel like they lack on defense. I don't think that you can improve defense any more than what you already have last season. I think right now you just have to allow the guys to play and to gain experience. You got to find a way to improve offensive line. And I don't quite know if you're going to get that as a solution. We've already worked on that for the past 3 years and we still haven't gotten much. Injuries are just injuries. And I will go to defend, like I said, the Bengals O-line to a certain level. But then the question for me is the receiving part. 2 years ago, we only had to worry about the offensive line, and that didn't necessarily pan out. Last season, we had to worry about the defense. Bates was gone. We had to worry about a couple of defense problems. Did we fix it? Maybe, maybe not. Time will tell. Now we got receiving problems. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase has been up there throughout the course of this year asking, hey, maybe I should be traded. I don't think the Bengals will let him go, but I personally, as much as I am a fan of the combination of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I don't want to see that to be broken up. But at the same time, I need to see, I don't want to see a Jamar Chase lose out on an opportunity at winning a championship, just like what we saw with AJ Green years ago. So I hope when you see Kansas City Chiefs win another Super Bowl, and this is the team that you can beat. Okay, I think you're 4-1 since Joe Burrows came into the NFL. Again, between the Chiefs and the Bengals. So this should be a motivation, but this should also be something that we look into this offseason and say, all right, well, how are we going to put these pieces together? Because you have to make a Jamar Chase, and I argue to say that you have to find a way to keep either T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. You can't let both of them walk. And you got to find a way to either add a free agent, draft a really good prospect in this year's draft, or, I don't know the other solutions. But this also just improves the Kansas. This also just proves that Kansas City is that team to beat. No matter how many times you could beat them, they're still the team to beat. You see, we talk about this. The San Diego Padres beat the Dodgers last year, not last season, but the year before in the NLDS at Petco Park. They're beatable. Yes, Kansas City is beatable. They didn't go undefeated this year, but they're still the team to beat. It is argued that Kansas City, or that I will define that Kansas City is the team to beat in the AFC. And it's going to lead to my question when we come back from break, because I question if the Cincinnati Bengals are still an elite team. We'll talk about that when we come back, bottom half of the hour. Coming up next, you guys are listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right. So I was just on. So I actually want to give a shout out to. I love when people are active. They give their thoughts on social media. It creates a room for debate. What do you like? What don't you like? How does something work? How does something don't work? I love hearing from other perspectives than just my own. So, I've been following this guy on social media, Lance McAllister. He is on WLW from 6 to 9. He posted this, so I had to go up on. He actually posted a tweet, or he shared a tweet. I don't know too much of this is true. But this was posted earlier today from Jeff Goodman in breaking news at the field of 68. Ohio State has parted ways with Chris Holtmann, sources told. Holtmann went to NCAA tourney in each of his first 4 years with the Buckeyes and was set to go the year of the tourney was with the tournament that was canceled. Went all 3 years at Butler and went to the Sweet 16. Buckeyes has taken a nosedive the last 2 years, and Gene Smith decided to make the move now. Looking into it, I know Ohio State Buckeyes. This is going to be developing as we, I think we learn more. You do expect Ohio State to kind of have success through and through. Especially for their football team. But this is where they're at right now. And this is where it's actually this is where it makes sense at. Okay. Their overall Buckeyes, as we head into this season, okay, is 14-11. And in conference, they are 4-10. They're undefeated at neutral sites. They're 10-4 at home, but this is what gets me. They're 0-7 on the road. So not playing so great. We got to admit to that. As we get closer here, they lost yesterday 62-54 against Wisconsin on the road. So you're parting ways with Chris Holtmann for Purdue, which is this Sunday. And you got to make that. If you're going to make the move, you got to make it immediately. You don't want to wait until the very last second to make the move. Give them some time. You come back home, face for Purdue on Sunday. Then you got Minnesota on the road, which I don't know how well you're going to do with that. Michigan State is on the road. Come back home to Nebraska, February 29th. Michigan is at home. And Rutgers. I think, listen, you're going to just have to bite this one, take it with a grain of salt, get back out there during the off season and have a better ball club. But you have the expectation of winning and you should be winning. So, I put up this comment, and this actually, with Kansas City winning the Super Bowl and understanding that they've done that, not having such a great year, I would argue that that Kansas City is the team not only to beat, but they're the team not to underestimate or undermine. Who cares about what the season projects? Make it to the postseason, and that's another organization. So I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what did we see this past year? I saw a lot of great things from Baltimore. I think although Kansas City won Super Bowl 58, which is all that matters, I think Baltimore Ravens had probably the best year in the NFL out of all 32 teams. Yes, we can't go aside from saying or complimenting, the Houston Texans after they had a bounce back year. We can't, we have to give, acknowledge, the Detroit Lions as a regular season. I think I got to tip my cap to the Baltimore Ravens. They finally came to the conclusion with Lamar Jackson. They finally sat there and they they picked up some key players and they went to the AFC Championship game, right? And maybe Baltimore was, overlooking Kansas City, and that's why they lost. I don't know. But Baltimore was for me the best team of the year. Then it would be Detroit, Houston. Cleveland had a decent year. So I'm looking at all the decent years and what we could potentially see heading forward, because I don't think we're seeing the last of Houston. Jacksonville, I think, took the division for granted, and then they got surpassed by the Colts and Houston. So, hopefully we see a bounce back year from Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. But then we also saw a really good season in the AFC North division alone, not just in Baltimore and Cleveland. Pittsburgh had another winning season. And although Cincinnati had a winning season, it wasn't enough to make the postseason or the playoffs. So now my question kind of relingers of, are the Cincinnati Bengals still considered to be an elite team in the AFC? Now, this was a team that was last year in the conversations of making it back to the AFC Championship. That it was also a conversation of making it back to the Super Bowl. And although, and this is one thing I think, obviously they got hurt right away. They struggled right away throughout the entire season. Yeah, you could hold your head up high and say you had a winning season, but when you miss the playoffs, when you're expected to be at the playoffs, and this is how football works, okay? And this is also how baseball works and most of other sports, is that you can be overlooked, okay, now because you did not make the playoffs. Great, you had a winning season, but did you make the playoffs? Did you make it to the divisional conference? Did you make it to the AFC, NFC conference championships? Did you make it to the Super Bowl? And when you look at this, I'm starting to wind it back, and I'm like, well, now, yes, Kansas, Cleveland has to repeat. I don't have any doubts that Pittsburgh's going to repeat their success. I don't know if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, but I'm not betting against Mike Tomlin having a 500, less than a 500 season. When you start throwing in Baltimore back in that picture, Kansas City's up there at the top. Are the Bills even that great, even though they made it to the postseason? I mean, Houston is trying to make a run for it. We'll see how they do next year. Is Cincinnati still a top tier team in the AFC? I mean, now, and let's not forget about this, now you throw in Jim Harbaugh in the Los Angeles Chargers, and this could be a whole new dynamic come next season, right? So there's a lot of conversations right now away from Cincinnati, and maybe it's a good thing to take a step back away from the spotlight, maybe take a couple of the expectations away from you, or, as, all right, should they still be a top conversation piece, and then reconfigure out themselves to kind of maybe shoot back in and say, all right, you know what, don't forget about us. Or are they going to get shuffled into the mix? And right now, we have so many questions that need answering, and we have so many problems that need fixing. I just don't know if we can put together an established team, to take us back to where we were 2 years ago. Like I said in the last segment, 2 years ago for the last 3 years, the number one question of where we need fixing at is the offensive line. And as I've defended the offensive line time and time again, I will still defend them. They're not the greatest. And it's rare. And I don't think the Bengals are ever going to have the number one offensive line in the NFL. And you don't need the number one offensive line in the NFL to win you a championship. Kansas City doesn't have the number one offensive line, and they won a championship. But you need to take some accountability when it comes down to Joe Burrow. And now I'm going to throw in there and Jake Browning because, as I mentioned to you before, you have a window slot. And I don't know why analysts and reporters are giving so much, grief to these quarterbacks when they want to sit in the pocket for half a minute just to throw a ball. Okay. And I know the game has changed, but still, I go to the road of saying 7 to 10 seconds at best. And still by then that ball needs to be gone. Or you know what? That quarterback needs to decide that he's going to tuck it and run it. Right? There's no more, extending plays shouldn't be in every play, scenario. And Joe Burrow, I'm sorry, rewatch these games and I'll sit down with you and analyze each and every game and how many times he's had to, extend a play because he can't find a receiver. So you need to have your plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3. But when you start digging into those 2 and 3 options, you have to either get rid of the ball quickly, but you can't put it on your offensive line. I don't care how much they get paid. They're not they're the only ones besides defensive linemen that have to be crouched. A certain position cannot move when the ball gets snapped or until the ball gets snapped. Your defensive lineman, yeah, but they can kind of get into a more comfortable position to get off the ball. There is a second window. So that's number 1. Number 2, as I mentioned, was your defense, which they brought in a much younger defense. I just think time would tell through experience. First year can't be acceptable. Can't be the only way to determine whether it's a failed. But let's tear it down and rebuild it. But now we have to throw in our receivers, which is the biggest problem that we have. Hell, Joe Mixon's still even in the conversation. So what do? We can't let nothing happen, and we can't resort to the NFL draft to solve all of our problems. Because I don't know if the last time you noticed, we're not number 1, number 2 seed, and I don't think we're giving up anybody or anything for a number 1, number 2 pick in the draft. So where else are we? I mean, you can maybe get 1 or 2 lucky guys, and probably a year or 2 away from actually being anybody in the NFL, but you still have to wait that time. I believe that the Bengals window of success is slowly caving in. And, this past year, although, yes, listen, this past year we dealt with a lot of injuries. I think we saw a lot happen in the change of the game that if we don't fix them soon, we're going to be an afterthought. And that is scary. Our number 1 is we're going to host them at a later date. Our number 2, we got some wrestling to talk about, and boy, isn't it exciting that spring training is finally here. So let's come back and begin our number 2 with some local sports conversations. I got an update in college basketball around the town. I got a projection for the Cincinnati Reds, an article that was written and published by Mark Sheldon. And then we'll talk about the whole dynamic between Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. All that still to come. Hour number 2 headed your way. You guys are listening to the Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, hour number 2 here is given to you thanks to Spreaker from iHeartRadio. It's not just an audio platform for listening to podcasts and music. You can also upload your podcast, be able to monetize, and view your analytics. Spreaker has your number one most largest distributions from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more. Check out Spreaker.com for more information. Proud home of the TNC Sports Talk Audio Podcast Distribution Center. Man. All right, NCAA is coming down to just a handful more games, a few more weeks. As I see here, I got like another 2.5 weeks before March Madness basketball gets underway. Yesterday, a couple games went underway or concluded. Let me get into that here, wherever I can find it. I don't think I have it, did I? Nope. All right, I'm just going to go off of here. Kentucky hosted Ole Miss at Rupp Arena and Central Bank Center in Lexington, Kentucky last night. Number 2 Kentucky entered the game 17-7, defeating the 18-6 Ole Miss 75-63. And this has snapped a 3-game losing streak from Kentucky at home as we head into the final stretch of NCAA college basketball. We saw the return of Trey Mitchell after returning from a back injury and, kicked things off last night in a full strength team for the first time this season. And, that's something that I think Kentucky has been waiting for all year long is a full healthy team. He did leave the game early before the second half with a shoulder injury. Bree Shepard added 13 points for the Wildcats, and Justin Edwards added 12 points. Trey Mitchell only came in, and he didn't really do much. He put up 5 points, 6 rebounds in 21 minutes. And so we'll, as we learn more, as we wait for more, as we get into teams like Kentucky is only looking right now, hey, this is preseason to the March Madness. Hey, let's just get ourselves into the bracket next month, and that's when our season really starts. And so Kentucky doesn't care where they play at or where they're positioned at. They just care about making it to the tournament. And because that's what it all matters. You could be 4th place in the division. They just care about being in the tournament. But a solid game last night. First half was a dominating portion by Kentucky, 43-29. Ole Miss outshoot the Wildcats 34-32 in the second half, but came up short. Kentucky's next game, Ole Miss will host Missouri on Saturday night. Kentucky will visit number 13 Auburn on Saturday night as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on this week. I'm expected to do a show later this week, but we'll see where everything comes under. Cincinnati Bearcats, we just talked about this and their programming. You talked about losing a game against Iowa State 68-59. Iowa State moves to 8-3 in the Big 12 as Cincinnati is 4-7 in the Big 12 as well. They are winless on the road. Couple of key notable players: Dan Skilling, 13 points. Simas Lucasus, 15 points. Jizzle James, 16 in last night's loss. Tough loss for the Bearcats at home, but Cincinnati travels to Orlando to face UCF at 4 p.m. on Saturday. So you can watch, stay tuned into that game. Tonight, Xavier will be playing against taking on Seton Hall, 6 p.m. tip-off. Seton Hall is 15-9, as Xavier is 13-11. So that's your men's basketball through and through. We talked about some Cincinnati Bengals. They had they had a projection timeline. So I was wanting to share this here with you before we get into baseball. I was reading this. Let me see where I can find it at again. Bengals release AJ McCarron from their roster today. Remember, AJ McCarron used to be the backup for the Bengals, but then he was not on the team to begin the season. He was added to the practice squad. Okay, so AJ McCarron, who was a 10th year player in 2024, he signed with with Cincinnati practice squad on September 23rd of last season, 2023. He was signed to the active roster December 4th, excuse me, when Joe Burrow officially went down. He played in 2 games for the Bengals throughout the year, but he's been released again as well. Bengals re-signed offensive tackle Devin Corcoran to a 1-year contract extension through this coming up season. The Bengals also signed 9 players to reserve future contracts. They will not count on the team's active list as of Monday. Bengals also today evaluated cornerback, and this wasn't today. Yeah, it was today. Excuse me. The Bengals evaluated cornerback Sidney Jones and wide receiver Stanley Morgan from the practice squad to active roster from tomorrow. That was earlier in the season. I'm just outdated with myself here. But I was looking at this. Okay, so I wanted to see if I could find it, because this was actually a deal that I was looking into. Can you get back one of your players? And I had it up, but for some reason I lost it. I was reading it earlier today, but then just lost it again. Yeah. Well, if I could find it, I'll talk about it at a later date. All right, the Cincinnati Reds pitchers and catchers reported yesterday, but they also ended up taking care of. But they actually start the practice today. The position players will report, I want to say Sunday for Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And first game is next Saturday, February 24th against the Cleveland Guardians. The only other team, so everyone, pitchers and catchers are now here for everyone. I believe later on this week, we will see position players for the Padres and the Dodgers, because on March 22nd, they will actually be in Korea to play the first game of the season. So they're kind of a little ahead of the schedule. I believe spring training for them starts next Thursday. Dodgers and Padres will have their first Cactus League spring training practice. I read a post from Lance McAllister a couple of days ago about the spring training, and it is a bit tough. A lot of people out here will move from football to college basketball before they get into baseball in that sense. Because, and one of the biggest reasons why is because the Cincinnati Reds go off to Arizona for 6 weeks as they get ready for the season. And I was reading this this post by Lance earlier to this morning, and it just resonated in my head. And so, he feels that there is a disconnection between the Reds fans and the Cincinnati Reds for the next 6 weeks, which is true because, as we get ready for this, and I don't know how the Reds do it. I mean, I think a lot of people, come out on opening day because they know it's an opening day. It's a holiday in the area, but are they realistically caught up with everything that's happened in spring training over the past 6 weeks leading towards opening day? Or are they just ready, finding a reason to get out of work, get out of school, go out and enjoy, life, not necessarily baseball for that matter, but just enjoy the community celebration. And I think, it's not just Cincinnati that goes through this. I think there are, several other ball clubs that go through the same traction of, well, we lose disconnection. If you're, if you're in Tampa, if you're in Florida, if you're Tampa Bay Rays, if you're the, if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, you're the Miami Marlins. If you're the Arizona Cardinals or Arizona Diamondbacks, if you're maybe San Diego Padres, Dodgers, Angels, Rockies, maybe Texas, you have easy access to get to Cactus League. I remember in San Diego, I always be asked, hey, do you want to take a trip up to Peoria to watch the Padres this weekend? You could take a trip, and it's like an 8-hour drive to get from San Diego to Peoria, or a 12-hour drive. And so you go head up there on a Friday, you watch Saturday and watch Saturday's game, maybe Sunday's game, and then head on back and be back to work by Monday. And Cincinnati doesn't get that. Cleveland doesn't get that. Chicago doesn't get that. And unless you have money that you could head out to the stadium, you don't get the option to really enjoy your ball club during spring training. So it's definitely frustrating. It's definitely, you rely on a lot of the websites. So McAllister kind of pointed out an idea that I liked is, why don't you put up, cameras all around the ballpark on, live views, and have have you go to the Cincinnati Reds website, and you could watch the live streams of these cameras. You see it often at the zoos, at the aquariums, where you could catch out, here's, a camera that's enclosed on a habitat, and you could just watch whatever happens. But why don't you do that for spring training? And I was just thinking to myself, that's such a great idea, because the Cincinnati, because now, throughout the day, you want to check in on what your Reds are doing. Maybe they're taking BP, maybe they're doing a pitching session. You get a chance to watch them, and then maybe, and I was just even taking it one step further. Well, how can Major League I don't think it's just the Reds should be doing this. I think all of baseball should be doing this. I don't care who you are. I think what they should do is set up numerous of live stream cameras for 12, 16 hours a day. Okay. Whatever the frame may be, and just live stream, spring training, because you're not just the spring training games, but because, listen, the spring training games are going on, and people, you still have another 40, 60 men, at the campus taking BP or working on something other for the minor leagues. And so why don't you just do it for all 30 ball clubs? Make a general basis of the fields, of batting cages, available on everybody, all 30 ball clubs' web pages. Okay. And then here, I take it even one step further to kind of entertain the idea of, well, how can you make this a business factor? Major League Baseball Network, MLB.com, can create, you have subscriptions where you pay to get subscribed to certain things throughout the month. The Cincinnati, and then what they could technically do is, all right, if you want more exclusive access, like the workout room, like the lunchroom, like you want to tour around the stadium, you want more interviews, whatever you want, physical, you want the physical therapy, stuff like that can be more exclusive to where if you subscribe to Major League Baseball or this, your specific team's program, you could get access to that. But I think that would help. For me, I'm a fan of it. I love baseball. I mean, this is the time of year I'm trying to get excited about baseball. Right now, I'm banking off the Cincinnati Bearcats and Xavier Musketeers down the street up in their college teams. Their Bearcats are heading down south for the weekend. I believe they have a 3-game weekend series. Forgot against who, but they will be occupied, and they come home. I want to head out to some Bearcats game. Want to head out to Xavier and Cincinnati. I know the weather is not the greatest, but I'm all for it. Get more baseball. That's what I'm talking about. So hopefully, I don't know. That's just, who's going to listen to me in that respect? All right. When we come back, I want to share with you guys Mark Sheldon's projective Reds opening day roster. See what we agree, what we disagree with. This was actually posted a couple days ago. Kind of just getting ourselves a look into what people are starting to feel based off of where the Reds are at heading into the 2024 season. So that's still to come. And don't forget, we still got to talk about some WWE at the end of the day. So still more to come out. Number 2, you guys are listening to The Throwing on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
are now in the presence of a king.
Alrighty. So, discover your. I just had it. Just had it. It's what happens when you don't do a show for a while. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a music royalty-free music link. Check out Epidemic Sound for more information. All music coming from here on our program, coming from epidemicsound.com. How to get that one in there before we as we continue with our program here. But interesting note here as we continue, Jonathan India signs that 2-year contract. I think it's note to be mentioned with the Cincinnati Reds. It's signed for 2 years, $8 million. And I think this is I think this is something that needed to be resolved. This was heading into arbitration. And there was a lot of questions of, was this Jonathan India wanting, hey, listen, I don't want the contract. I need more. Or was this more so of, his agent wanting him to get more? And, and we've heard talks and, the comments from India, how he wants to play baseball. It's always good when you don't have any controversy in someone's contract heading into the season, because now you can just put everything aside, head into spring training, get ready for the season, and here we go. What was interesting, because there was a lot of thoughts of how could India maybe be utilized or taken advantage of in the trade market, because we are stacked right now in the infield. I mean, you got Christian Encarnacion Strand, now Jonathan India, McLean, Ellie De La Cruz, Jameer Candelario. You got Noel V. Marte. And I think it works out perfectly, because I wasn't really considering that Spencer Steer was going to get some time out there in the right field. Matt McLean's another utility guy. He could play some outfield as well. Jonathan India provides a right-handed at bat for the DH. So I think maybe, as we get, I think India is going to be an everyday player in that roster. But on those days where he is maybe, every 6 days, he may get that nod to, just hit, because we don't want to lose in that bat like him coming from, on a day-to-day basis. So his at bat is very important, and that's where your DH kind of plays in a factor. So, I think David Bell has some great options to choose from. Like I said, Spencer Steer could still play some first. He could play some third. I think who you're going to have on the bench is going to utilize everyone's playability. Matt McLean, I think he's a great guy coming off the bench. So I guess we're going to have to see just how that works. Hold on one second. So this kind of comes into my next thing. Like I said, Mark Sheldon kind of put together a projecting opening day roster for the Red Lakes. So I kind of want to just run through this with you guys and see if you guys agree. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, and I want you guys to see what I'm seeing here. And this is actually could be found on the Cincinnati website. And let's see what angle. Nope, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That works a little bit better. There you go. All right, finding the perfect camera angle. So I'll start putting my mind together. I don't really have, I was looking over this before sharing this before the program today, and I was just like, I did not really necessarily disagree. I think for what you have to offer, you have the best options down there. It's just how you utilize all of them. So as we know, pitchers and catchers were already reported. It's a 26-man roster that has to be finalized, I believe, by the 27th or 26th, that David Bell's going to have to put together, or Nick Kroll, before they face the Nationals on March 28th. He wrote, I think, it's going to be a game to game situation. I think these players are going to be utilized to the, we're going to see a big, we're not, I'll be surprised to see the same lineup each and every night. I know that there's key players that are, okay, Ellie De La Cruz, you're at shortstop. Candelario, you're going to play at third base, right? Stevenson, you're going to be catching. But I feel like we're going to see a combination, a mix of utilizing everyone, because I feel like everyone has that time to play, and they need to play, especially these young kids, right? Remember, this is a team that's really developed among young talent, and this is their sophomore years for most of them. At least guys like McLean and Ellie De La Cruz are sophomores to the game. Marte got a little taste of it. He could be, I still consider him a freshman if he breaks out opening day roster. Carnacion Strand, another freshman that we're going to see the difference of. So Mark Sheldon puts out 2 catchers. We got Tyler Stevenson, Luke Malley. Now, both of these guys could play some first base, and I think this is what's going to help the roster overall. You got Malley, who is coming back from last season. It's his first year with his hometown team. I think he brings some wisdom to that roster, especially that back end of the rotation. Stevenson, I think I know the game plan for Stevenson is to be that everyday catcher, but you also have he is one of the at bats that you need to keep in that lineup. So whenever you're giving him a day off from catching, you could put him at first base, which doesn't take a whole lot of work compared to catching every day. But you could also put him as the DH. So I do expect him to be utilized and almost play, 140 plus games in the season, with Nick Malley doing some of the catching behind the plate. At first base, you got Christian Encarnacion Strand. Now, this is the first year without Joey Votto, and I could give you a take on that, but I'll probably take up the rest of this segment. Yes, you still have Candelario as option. You have, I think, Jonathan India, who I think would probably get some look at first base during the spring. I don't know how much you'll use him throughout the course of the year, but then you still have Spencer Steer that could play a little bit of first base as well. So, the combinations, I think, rattle up with both Stevenson and Malley. Then we look at Matt McLean and Jonathan India. I think this spot designated for India, especially with his contract. You want him to be an everyday player. He's probably right now one of your biggest possessions on this roster, maybe second to Ellie De La Cruz. Matt McLean, like I said, he can play almost every position around the diamond. I think you utilize that off the bench at most. And when he's playing second base, India has to be there either at first or he's getting, help at getting at bats at the DH. Ellie De La Cruz is kind of your only everyday shortstop. You got Candelario, McLean could play short, Noel Marte could play short as well. So, but Ellie De La Cruz sits there and he puts it out there at short on a day-to-day basis. And then we get down to Candelario. He's one of your key figures. You signed him to a 3-year deal, $45 million. Not playing him, not putting him up there. He provides that veteran presence to the infield with these young group of guys. You also have Marte, who's ranked number 21 among all prospects in the MLB pipeline. So you have a combination there. I think you stick with Candelario through his experience. Former Cubs organization. He has some postseason experience. He's capable of hitting 20 to 25 home runs. If you got Candelario, you could get Spencer, Steer, Fraley, Dela Cruz, all hitting about 20, 25 home runs. We're looking excited for this season. Then you got for the outfields, I think you got Spencer Steer, TJ Friedel, Jake Fraley, Will Benson, Stuart Fairchild. Um, you know, what kind of, I don't know, maybe something just doesn't sit right with me. I know why Spencer Steer is out there in the outfield. He provides that right-handed at bat along with, Will Benson and Stuart Fairchild, but I don't know. I haven't seen this combination work. I would like to see how this works during spring training and seeing exactly how that would fit throughout the course of the year. I mean, like I said, I think Steer left. I don't know. Do you move Jake Fraley over to right field to put Steer in left, or does Steer go in right with Fraley in left? I don't know. Good combination there. Starting pitchers. Mark Sheldon has Graham Ashcraft, Frankie Montas, Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo. So who's missing? You have Montas, who signed a 1-year, $16 million deal. So you're putting someone up in double digits. You're keeping Montas in that rotation as much as possible. Hunter Green, he signed that contract extension last season. I thought that was a pivotal point of the Reds season last year. So you keep him. I think you put Hunter Green as your ace, and now since he signed that contract and now he knows his role, I don't think he has to be an ace. I think if you allow Graham Ashcraft to improve, he needs improvement. You kind of give him that spotlight this year. Nick Lodolo, who's looking to bounce back from some injuries last season. Andrew Abbott, who spent majority of his time in the minor leagues looking to really fight. But I'm sure David Bell says, all right, you know what? Maybe despite Montas and Green, maybe Ashcraft can be guaranteed. If you're Brandon Williamson, who's a left-handed pitcher and outbeats Nick Lodolo, then your number's going to be called. Nick Martinez, Connor Phillips is also guys that, listen, David Bell, if you come out of spring and you have a better, spring season than some of these guys, don't be too surprised from David Bell saying, all right, you know what, I'm going to, especially at the back end of that rotation, to say, all right, I'm going to call Connor Phillips up over to Lodolo and just see how things go. The other conclusion is, and this is what my favorite part of a pitching rotation / bullpen, especially that 26 man on that roster, which helps in that bullpen. One thing's for certain, you got right now 8 relief pitchers. Alexis Diaz expected to be your closer. Lucas Sims, Brent Suter, okay, Nick Martinez, who we'll talk about in a minute, Emilio Pagan, Sam Maul, Brooke Farmer, and Ian Gibbon. You think about this, right? You have another combinations, right? TJ Antone, Fernando Cruz, Alex Young, but Martinez, you signed that 2-year deal, $26 million. So if he's not, he's going to be an X factor. If he's not in that rotation, which this is what I like to see, is as your longevity pitcher in that bullpen. One thing that I want to see the Reds to do, because this was a big issue heading into last season. The Reds starting pitching, which none of them, maybe besides Abbott, besides Phillips, and besides Brandon Williamson, right? Frankie Montas has been up in the majors. Graham Ashcraft, Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, they've all had major league experience. This isn't their rookie year. This isn't their sophomore year. I'm holding a little bit higher of expectations, a little bit more of consistency out of these guys. And I think you have to. Which means then now you can allow one, maybe 2 guys that have not gotten any experience at all to come up and showcase what they're able to do. But then now you get to the bullpen, because now I'm expecting these starting pitchers who are juniors now in the major leagues, third year, coming on 3 years now, to give you consistency out of innings production. 5, 6 solid innings each and every outing, which takes a workload off of that bullpen when you could send your bullpen into the 7th, 8th, and 9th as whatever scenario you are going under. And if you do have those occasions where your pitchers aren't going out of the 4th inning, you could throw in a guy like Nick Martinez. I say, and say, all right, well, Nick, can you eat up 2 or 3 innings for me? I think when a dynamic bullpen for me is having 7 guys who can get you through a 6, 7, 8, and 9th inning on a nightly basis. And then that 8th guy in your rotation or in your bullpen needs to come and be able to, hey, I need you longevity. I need you to eat up some two innings. Not going to be every night, probably once a week, twice a week, maybe. If I need a bullpen day, I'm going to you to eat up 4 or 5 innings. And I think Nick Martinez could be the guy. But it is essential that this starting rotation gives you consistency out of innings. And here's what I'm going to say about guys like, Will Benson's been in the league. Jake Fraley's been in the league. Spencer Steer's been in the league. Stuart Fairchild, TJ Friedel, I want to see what they could produce. Noelvi Marte's youngster. Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain, Christian Encarnacion Strand. They are all getting a taste of the MLB. You look at Christian Encarnacion, Noelvi Marte, who I consider getting the first year. Stuart Fairchild's been up and down. TJ Friedel been up and down. So Stuart Fairchild, TJ Friedel, Ellie De La Cruz, Matt McClain. I'm expecting, the biggest question is how are they going to handle themselves after their initial rookie sensation? They're not no babies to the game no more. They're going to, they're still toddlers and learning how to walk. But how can the Reds work with their development? Because one of the problems that I run into is that a lot of these young guys get brought up to the major leagues, and it's a sink or swim, and that's all it is. There's no in between. There's no, okay, we're going to send you back down to the minors when you hit a slump so we can, you can reestablish yourself. It's you're in the majors, you get off to a great start, great. If not, if you don't, within the first 90 days, if you don't have a 280 or a better batting average, and even 280 is not a good average anymore. But then if you don't have a good average, then you're probably just a wasted player. No potential. So a lot of baseball players get rushed. I mean, same thing with football players. These players get rushed so much that they don't have the ability to kind of reset back and, reset everything that they have, which is frustrating. Because you really don't know how good a player is, unless they go through the struggles as well. All right, let's take our last break of the program. Let's come back, and we got to talk some wrestling. You guys are listening to Throwing on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right. We got some breaking news coming your way. Just posted out there on Twitter, and this is kind of interesting. And I'm trying to figure out the game plan for this, but this is related to our story here. Breaking news from the WWE: Grayson Waller just announced that on the WWE bump moments ago that Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins will be joining him on the Grayson Waller effect at WWE Elimination Chamber in Australia. Grayson Waller, that Australian, going to be doing the Grayson Waller effect in his hometown. I think this is big for Grayson Waller effect. He always never seems to disappoint, but man, he's going to have two guests, Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins. As we know, heading into WrestleMania, Cody Rhodes has officially declared himself and his WrestleMania opponent after winning the 2024 Men's Royal Rumble that he's going to be facing Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Championship. And so this all kind of twisted and turned over the last 2 weeks post Royal Rumble. So Cody Rhodes wins the Royal Rumble, says on the Friday, the SmackDown after post Rumble, says that he will win that title, but it's going to be on a different date, and then allows The Rock to come out and stare down Roman. So we're thinking that we're going to get Roman and The Rock. And then just last week on WrestleMania kickoff, Cody Rhodes gives Roman Reigns a taste of his own medicine by saying that his family would be ashamed of him and how he ran things. And The Rock took that personal, saying that, you talk about our family to Roman, you're talking about you're getting involved with me, slaps Cody in the face. And now on this past Monday Night Raw, Cody says, I'm going to get my hands, I will lay hands back on you. What does this mean? Elimination Chamber, which is building up, right, is expecting to determine the men's Elimination Chamber, which is going to be in 2 weeks in Australia, is going to determine who's facing Seth Rollins at WrestleMania as well. And by the way, Seth Rollins is still recovering from a torn MCL and a partially torn meniscus, I believe, right? Something like that. Anyways, so and then you have this advertisement for WrestleMania 40 that if you haven't seen it, you guys have been living underneath a rock, because it's Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins going face to face, walking face to face with The Rock and Roman Reigns. And Triple H says, hey, this is going to be something you've never seen before, which is boggling. Like, I just can't wrap my head around this. WrestleMania 40 is going to be something different. The confusion that I think has been back and forth the last couple of weeks, I think after spending days of just thinking about it, it's amazing. Because if you would have asked me last week how I would have thought all this back and forth confusion, I'm saying, listen, the WWE is running around with their heads cut off like a bunch of chickens. But in reality, they're actually sitting here, and it looks like they're putting something together. Now, here's my only concern. We are officially 52 days away from WrestleMania 40. It's a 2-night extravaganza, just like it's been the last couple of years. And there's only 2 confirmed matches. 1, you see Bayley and Io Sky. 2, you see Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Now there's a possibility that we could see a tag team match night 1. Right? At least that's what's been rumored around. There's a lot of, I think, how do I best put this? There's a lot of rumor. I think there's a lot of things that you could take away from watching, the WWE right now. and kind of putting together what else could happen at Mania. Becky is trying to really make her case against Rhea Ripley. But we've seen it in times before that until she actually wins the Elimination Chamber, nothing's confirmed, because the Women's Elimination Chamber is going to determine who faces Rhea Ripley for her championship at WrestleMania. We also see, a feud between Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, LA Knight, and AJ Styles. We got Logan Paul, the United States Championship. Gunther's the Intercontinental Championship, and they don't seem to have opponents heading into WrestleMania. The last thing with Logan Paul is you have you got Kevin Owens in the rearview mirror trying to come after him. The last thing for Gunther is Jey Uso, but then there's rumors of Jimmy and Jay at WrestleMania. I see, what is it, the Hurt Business, Bobby Lashley, and the Street Profits, and then you got Karrion Kross and AOP. They've been doing battles back and forth, which I'm only assuming that's going to be a 6-man tag at Mania, which I'm fine with that. I guess my only argument on that was that they've been they kind of been teasing that since January, and it's just like it scratches my head a little bit. But there's still so many other things that you can do. I mean, how's the Judgment Day don't have WrestleMania matches yet besides Rhea Ripley? They hold the undisputed tag team titles. I think they're gonna probably face DIY again at Mania, which then they could lose it. But then I don't know. I clearly do not know. But this is, instead of getting frustrated about it, like I said, if you asked me a week ago, I would have been, furious, flustered about all this, because I'm so confused that, that all this is happening, and we really haven't really gotten any clarity of what we could see in 7 weeks. 7 weeks. If you time, that's 14 shows. 14 and minus realistically minus SmackDown the night before WrestleMania. So you got 13 shows left. Well, minus this, so you got 12 shows left. Oh gosh, you got 12 shows left before WrestleMania, plus Elimination Chamber, and we got 2 matches to count for. So I don't know. I mean, does the I'm assuming Triple H and The Rock and WWE in general has a grasp on what they want to do. I'm to believe that. But we haven't quite seen I see a whole lot of stuff that could happen, but haven't seen anything announced yet. A lot of that stuff is being displayed, has been waiting off. So when are we going to see it, 4 weeks away or whatnot? I don't know. And, my other thought is because, WrestleMania showcases all your top talents. How, are you really able to fit everything that you need to fit in to WrestleMania on both nights? And do you have enough time to tell those stories? I do not want the WWE to come to me on a Monday Night Raw and say so-and-so is going to face each other because of a feud 3 months ago. DIY lost to the Judgment Day a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Raw. Matter of fact, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. And since then, they end up beating Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. So you tell me for the next 2 months, they're going to earn themselves another title shot. And no one else is going to challenge the Judgment Day. I personally believe, if you ask me, the Judgment, and I don't know, this is me writing the story, I'd have DIY win that title, and I'd rather see DIY take on Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate at Mania for those titles. They're just more aggressive, not aggressive, but they're high flying. The maneuvers. I just think it's impeccable compared to what DIY. And don't get me wrong, DIY and the Judgment Day had a great battle, but it's just not the same. I'd also, then I'd go see, the feud between, Judgment Day, because there's animosity among each other. You just see them kind of working things out. Dominic Mysterio doesn't necessarily have a WrestleMania match. who's winning that chamber? Anyways, just so much confusion. I just want to see some clarity. Hopefully we get that in a couple of weeks. But after looking at it, it's been exciting. If you're a wrestling fan, this is why you're tuning in, because you just don't know what to see. And the last couple of weeks have been more questions than answers. And, you know, like I said, I saw that breaking news during the break. It's a video. It's on Twitter, on the WWE Twitter page. It was on the WWE The Bump. You know, listen, Grayson Waller's going to have that, and we're going to see what type of things they what happens in Australia. I was expecting the tag team match in Australia, matter of fact, but maybe we're seeing that at WrestleMania instead. And then how does that work? I mean, Seth Rollins defends his championship night 2 then? I don't know. Weird. For me, it's all strange. Listen, we're just wrapping things up on this episode. We're at the end of time, but we got a lot to talk about. Baseball season's getting underway. You know what's fun talking about baseball season? Is that you got all these predictions, expectations, things to talk about, and the things to look at that's just been posted a day, 20 minutes ago, an hour ago. So, as pitchers and catchers are starting their practice, as field position players report within a week, as spring training games report in 2 weeks, as elimination chamber gets close enough, we got still a lot to raffle. Want to thank everyone for tuning in to our show here today. Stay tuned to our website. Make sure to head over to our website, www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can figure out when the next show program is going to be. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do one tomorrow, maybe Friday, hopefully, but we'll just have to see. So with that being said, that's all the time we have. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to look out for our audio platforms. And until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy Valentine's Day. You guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Excuse me.